Hello, Hello, Alberto.
Yeah?
I hear you clearly now.
I mean, lift me up 3 hands. Vai.
Okay, can I?
C'ha 3 mani, non vedi che ce n'è un'altra? Scusami. Senti, il volume è al massimo, eh?
Okay.
Come si muove, è vero?
Can I? Yes, coffee. Do I have 3 hands? No.
Pinar
has 3 hands.
Has 3 hands. Vai.
Okay. Can I?
C'ha 3 mani, non vedi che ce n'è un'altra?
Okay.
I would like to have some kind of haptic feedback, but I don't know.
Yeah. Did you try this before?
No, I mean I've been testing. What?
Video? No? Yes. But you cannot spill the coffee.
No.
Did we mix our... No. Together with his husband, they were in Polish University for a while. Yes.
Yes, do you hear me? You can't.
Okay, I can.
I would like to thank you for your participation to Italian Design Day 2022. And this is the first time that we are connecting Italy and Turkey in a virtual reality space together. Secondly, I would like to thank to our sponsor Infotron, who are providing this unbelievable space and technical
geldi, tamam.
us. And as you know, this year we're gonna talk about a sustainable future, regeneration, technology and design. So we can start with Alberto Iacovoni. And as you know, we are this year with Alper Derinboğaz, who is selected as 40 under 40 year architect in Europe. So with Alberto and Alper, we will discuss about design, feature, technique, and technology and regeneration. Alberto, please, maybe you can introduce you and also IEDROM a little bit. Then we can go on with your presentation.
Which is computezza. So, shall I start?
Yes, Alberto, please start.
Okay, thank you very much for inviting me. I'm very honored to be the International Design Day at Ambassador. Next slide, just to see very quickly. Perfection is something which is related to something which is very much related to contemporaneity. Okay, because the Industrial Revolution has placed us in the condition to have the idea that
hello to everybody from Bilişim Vadisi. Today we are with Alberto Iacovoni and Alper Derinboğaz. And as you know, this year, Italian Design Day 2022 is organized by Istanbul General Consulate of Italy, Bilişim Vadisi, Italian Ticaret Agency, and Institute of European Design. I would like to introduce you firstly our guest, Alberto Iacovoni. Alberto Iacovoni is the coordinator of Postgraduate School of IEDROM. And he is this year our ambassador of Turkey in Italian Design Day. Thank you very much for his attendance and joining us.
Thank you.
And I would like to introduce you Alper Derinboğaz, who is one of the most successful architects in the world of Turkey, and he represents us from Venice Biennale to our Architecture Best Selection Projects platform. And we are really proud of his works. And also he has some works with working with Luca Molinari, who is also one of our collaborators in Italian Design Day. And last week, we made a first trial of virtual reality panel together. And we had some different experiences about it. First, I would like to have some opinions about this experience. their senses, and also what are the potentials of usage in our education and this field. Yes, please.
Sorry, I have a problem with the connection. Everything is going very slow. Okay.
Can you hear us?
Yes, now, yes.
Okay.
Yes. So that was an amazing experience for me. Well, of course, I've been using VR glasses for gaming, but not to meet other people. And this is, of course, the next step of this technology. I really can't imagine how many possibilities also for teaching, for visualizing projects to clients, but also to make reviews with students. This is really unbelievable. And what is really interesting, I think it's really this. It's like if yourself has been split in two. No, it's like if you are in a real place and at the same time. I mean, I think that to me the strongest experience was to be with you in that virtual space and at the same time being at my school. And this is a kind of an expansion of the experience. And well, let's say, I really would like to, I'm waiting for a technology that could put all these two things together. I think that this divide is really dramatic. This fact that you are living in two places completely separated, that you are kind of blind towards one of the two, because while you're wearing these glasses, you don't see and you don't perceive anything of the physical space in which you are. And the same thing happens when you remove your VR glasses. I think that, I mean, what we need is a technology that is able to put together these two realms and to put together this kind of ghost space that is the space of the imaginaries, the space of potential relations all over the world, and the physical space in which we live. And I think that it's really a question of, it's a question of technology. It's a question of technological progress. But at the same time, it's also a question of design, how we are able to design these devices and how we can maybe imagine a way to create this link in between these two spaces. I always think about a very old quote by Paul Virilio, who said that he's always talking about this dividing between, digital space and real space. And he said that we need architects, we need dancers, we need performers, because they have to deal with bodies and not with ghosts. So I think that this is exactly what we have to do, is to put together these two worlds, completely so powerful, imaginary and digital, and the physical reality in which we live.
Yeah. Impressive.
Yeah, absolutely.
After that experience, I can give you an information about other collaborators of us. They are working on some haptic technologies. Mm-hmm. What makes you feel on your body? That was an experience by wearing that glasses with you and me, and we were having some joysticks together with us. But now, for example, one of our collaborators is working on. They produce that shoes for a soccer player, and to make a soccer, let's say, practicing, they have this shoe and some technical other wearings, so he can feel what it makes you sense when you kick a ball, for example. And also there are some gloves. Maybe for the next time we can really make this combine with not only with glasses but also with haptical wearables. So it could be also interesting. Alper, after that experience, we felt that you were in a little bit dizzy sense. Could you share your feelings about that experience?
Yeah, I think this is a common problem with this whole technologies, VR technologies, because, okay, we fake that we are in three-dimensional reality through eyes, to different perspective of the eyes, perspectives of the eyes. But I think it's improving technology, so it will get to the point where it is flawless. I mean, this is already very reachable, like it is almost a lot of people could buy this kind of accessories, and they kind of work. At the moment, imagine how the smartphones were in the beginning. So of course we are in the beginning of this kind of evolution. I think as architects, it's extremely important how we can make this technology into a useful thing, how to make it into a meaningful place. So I mean, we also are kind of part of our experience in the real world as human. Alberto is living in this beautiful city, for example. I'm sure it's part of his architectural background and everything. We are in Istanbul. We are dealing with complexity and how the actual world in the digital dimension is going to affect us. How it is going to inspire us. I think it's very important, and architects might need to think a lot about this. I don't see a lot of architects working on it, but that might be a very crucial thing to think about for us in the future.
Thank you very much. As Italian Design Day organization is a really big proud of us to experience this first trial with two successful designer architect of Turkey and Italy. Thank you very much for the attendance in this experience.
Thank you.
So we are here discussing on regeneration, technology, future, and design. We are discussing on the same date, 23rd of March, with more than 100 countries all over the world. So let's start with Alberto Iacovoni's presentation and what are the fields in design, regeneration, and technology.
Yes, thank you. I'll share my screen and I'd like to start to talk about regeneration, probably, just putting aside technology for a while, because I think that before technology, we have to understand what to do with technology, and we have to understand how designers and architects in the creative process, they have to deal with regeneration. And I believe that regeneration is affecting the way we conceive things. It's affecting profoundly the concept of beauty itself. So I would like to start talking about beauty now, because after all, as designers, we always try to work on something which is beautiful. And I would like to start using a quote for, let's say, a mediocre movie, Hollywood movie, where Nicolas Cage is quoting an Italian painter, Carlotti, and he says, there is an Italian painter named Carlotti, and he defined beauty. He said it was the summation of the parts working together in such a way that nothing needed to be taken away or altered, and that's you. You're beautiful. Of course, this quote is fake. There is no Italian painter named Carlotti, and it's just, a quote coming from Leon Battista Alberti, the great architect from the Renaissance, who defined beauty as more or less in the same way, as something where you cannot leave or add anything. So it's really about the idea of something which is completely accomplished, completed. And this idea of beauty is something which is really part not only of the classical culture from which I'm coming from, but if it's still in an Hollywood movie, it means that it's a very popular feeling about what beauty is. Beauty is something which is strictly linked to completeness. Plato in the Timaeus wrote that nothing that is uncompleted could be beautiful. And also this idea of beauty is very much linked to the idea of perfection. Aristotle wrote in the Metaphysica that perfect are those things that have accomplished their goal, their aim. And also in the word perfection, both in the Latin and in the Greek root, there is this idea of something which is finished, which is completely finished, which is something which has nothing to do, on which we don't have nothing to do afterwards. And this is very important because it's very much linked to the idea of the body. In classical culture, art and the body were very much linked together as an idea of perfection. The body is something from which we cannot remove or add anything. And we have some beautiful drawings by the architects of the Renaissance where there is this analogy between the body and architecture. So perfection is something which is completed, something which has nothing that can be removed or added, but this is not the reality. And this is something which is really against the idea itself of regeneration. So we have cities, towns, territories where beside with some kind of, let's say, perfect monuments from the past, we have a highly imperfect city, contemporary city, a city that sometimes has been built without rules, has been built from, let's say, in an informal way. I'm talking also, for example, about the south of Italy. I'm talking about many areas of the Mediterranean, where we need to complete something which is not completed, which probably has been has not been completed, but also has to be continuously reworked to be improved. To be, of course, adapted to the new needs related to energetical issues, but also something that has to be completed, that's something that has to be reworked in order to have a new imaginary, to reach a new identity. That's why I think that, for example, the work of the Italian architect Beniamino Servino, who is from Caserta, is a very important work. He has been producing an immense amount of drawings, but also some physical works where he's trying continuously to reimagine the landscape, which is a landscape that he calls the landscape of abandonment, a landscape which is made of uncompleted elements. We also have uncompleted highways somewhere. But really, we need a work by designers and architects to reimagine a landscape which still needs to define an identity, and probably will never be perfect, but sometime it could be beautiful. This idea of beauty as something which is completed is also a theoretical idea. Let's think just about the story of St. Peter's, one of the most important churches in Italy, where we have so many designers, let's say, so many architects that have been working on this project, starting from Bramante, Antonio da Sangallogione, Michelangelo, Peruzzi, Raffaello, and then also we have Maderno and Bernini. So it's really the beauty of this building, something which is based on completion. And let's think about, for example, about this amazing statue by Michelangelo, Pietà Rondanini, which is highly uncompleted. And let's think about how much this the fact that it's not completed, how much passion and pathos is adding to the way we perceive this work. So I think that probably this idea of completion is something which is beautiful. It's very much related to modernity and to industrial design, for example. The idea that a product is something that is, is designed to fit one goal, and then once this goal is over, it can be thrown away. Or let's think about, the project of the ideal city of architects of modernity, that were cities where everything was defined from scratch, housing and public services and everything. So this idea of something that has to be continuously regenerated is something that probably is belongs more to the past than to modernity. Our historical city, Rome, I think also about Istanbul, have been built through the continuous adaptation and rework and reuse of things. Of course, today, I'm not thinking that architects should, rework the Colosseum or the Teatro di Marcello, like in this image in this beautiful etching by Piranesi, because we have to respect the past and think that the past is something that has been, something that we have to, something that has been kind of consolidated and that we cannot change anymore. Still, this idea that what is beauty and how we can relate beauty to something that is continuously changing is there. I am showing you this picture by Lacatone Vassal, the two French architects that won the Pritzker Prize last year. They work on this idea that you have to design an architecture that can be then in the future be transformed and also augmented by people who inhabit it. And is this beauty? I don't know, but probably something which really it's opening the project to a future regeneration. So we don't only have to put ourselves with an attitude that is able to regenerate something that has been done by somebody else before, that probably is not Michelangelo, it's not Raffaello, but something which maybe we could consider ugly, but still it's it needs respect, and it needs our best intention to make it beautiful. But also we have to design something that in the future could be regenerated somehow at the level of architecture, but also at the level of design. This is a fantastic product by Paolo Julian, in which we have an object that is an object who is ready to be used as something else once something happens, and something that could make it not usable anymore. So I think that really regeneration is changing the way we consider beauty, and it's changing profoundly the way we face the design of objects and the design of buildings. And this is my point of view as a practicing designer and architect, but I would like now, more in the second part of my presentation, to talk about let's say the things that we are dealing with in my school, because Istituto Europeo di Design is a school where we don't do architecture, we work on product design, we work on communication, we work on fashion design. And so we don't really work on the hardware of our cities, let's say the buildings, but we more work on the software. And I think that from this point of view, beyond architecture, there is a huge opportunities for product design, for interior design, for communication. And I would like to speak a little bit about this, showing you three projects, project made by our students. This was a project for the regeneration of a mental hospital in Rome. It's a huge system of buildings that was designed and built in the late 19th century, beginning of the 20th century. And I think that it's a very interesting example of how, in an interdisciplinary way, you can design the regeneration of a building. In that case, the goal was to use these buildings as labs and exhibition spaces for an agricultural mean. I mean, the idea, you know, that Rome is one of the most important European agricultural cities because it has many green areas inside his territory. So the idea of that project, the request from the municipality of Rome, was to rethink the buildings in a way that they could be used for research on food and agriculture. So this is a project where we have interior design ideas to give a new meaning to these places, but at the same time also a project of communication that puts together all the wider frame. And also there is a project of the use of new technologies to create a new narrative on new services related to these spaces. So what I'm saying is that we can regenerate our cities not only by redesigning the buildings, not only by redesigning their interiors, but also creating new narratives and using new technologies to push people to see at the city and to live the city in a different way. This is, for example, a project by the master in graphic design of Via di Milano that was through a series of ideas and interventions that were graphical, but also there were also an idea of services that were trying to convince people to use and live the city and walk through the city and move through the city in a different way, moving instead of using the car, and making physical exercise instead of using polluting the environment. Last project I want to show you, just to get back to where we started a few days ago in this kind of digital version of the historical monuments of Istanbul and Rome, is this project for the archaeological park of the Colosseum, where of course, as I was saying before, we don't have to rework the Colosseum. We can change this incredible legacy from the past. We just have to respect. But what we can do, the way we can regenerate it, is to create new narratives and to change our point of view on these amazing buildings and territories from the past. So we have to build new narratives through all the means that we can use as designers, graphic design, communication, using the new medias to trigger new narratives about these places, using new tools and new applications, because we can't leave this past as something which is, fixed but we need to change this past in the way we can explore it, in the way we can think about it, in the way we can see it. And this is a fantastic work, where all these different disciplines are coming together to rethink the way we look at our glorious past, from the events to the wayfinding and all the aspects, so that we can change the way we look at the park archaeological of the Colosseum. Because I think that I'm finishing on this, that as the land artist Robert Smithson once said, is that we need really to go where distant pasts meet distant futures. Otherwise, our past will be just dead. And as designers, we really can create absolutely a completely different point of view and regenerate the way we live and the way we see our past. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alberto. I have a, let's say, question. Not actually a real question, but I would like to discuss on, maybe you can turn back on the example of Piranesi that you have show us.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking on this regeneration concept as also from the nature abstract, natural approach, like the natural regeneration on the
Let me go to Piranesi.
Natural regeneration on planet. And we will see, I really put on so much mention on this example. And regeneration sometimes is keeping the same concept through itself, but sometimes it really needs changes. We can see the changes from the beginning of ground floor to till roof, but it's still keeping the integration between all touches. So what do you think that integrates all the regeneration process into together?
I think that it's always, well, maybe this is not the case. The people from the past, the ancient, I mean, let's say people in the late 9th century, in the Middle Ages, they were not really, caring about what was the monument that was there before. They were just using it as an infrastructure. They were just using it, they were dismantling the old monuments to build their homes. So they had an approach in which they were not perceiving this distance and this respect towards the monuments of the past. It was just, material to be used. And then something happens in the Renaissance. They understood that was a glorious past. So they change a little bit the approach. Now we are with a completely different feeling. We know that this past is something which is incredibly valuable. And we know that there has been a hiatus, a break, and that we cannot act with the same natural continuity in transforming these buildings. We are aware that not only the buildings, but also the fabrics of the cities are something that we have, of the historical cities, are something that we have to profoundly respect. And I mean, that we cannot really transform them with the same, easy approach that we're using at that time. Still, so I think that we have to move our attention from these glorious monuments to the past to all this mundane architecture of the most recent present. You know, we don't need. Sometimes I hear architects in Italy saying, "Why couldn't we try and, you know, build something modern in the center of Rome? Why should we? I mean, we have huge amount of territory that need to have good projects and good interventions that really require and urge a redesign, because, you know, if our historical center are beautiful, it's because architects for centuries have been reworking it. And now we need the same approach, probably not in the center, in the periphery. We need it in the contemporary city. Let's leave, I mean, these beautiful buildings like this. And let me just add one thing. What we need, let's say, an open mind. We need the ability of understanding the quality of what is there. I really like what Rem Koolhaas wrote once. He said, we need to be like detectives on the traces of some kind of crime. So it's something that is not evident. We have to discover what is beautiful also in what it doesn't look like, you know. We have to be very attentive and try to understand how we can pick some hints from our contemporary world, which is not beautiful as the Teatro di Marcello, and try to understand how to work on that. We have to start from what is there and try to find which are the qualities of what is there, and then of course make a choice. Probably erase some of it, keep what is good, but still we have to start from a listening process to what is there.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Very, very inspiring ideas. I'm glad someone is in the field of architecture is still talking about beauty. This is extremely sad that we almost stopped talking about beauty after the modern. I mean, we of course talk about aesthetics and variety of things that relates to that, but still the notion of beauty is kind of overlooked in a way in architecture. Also in art, I mean, we thought if we get rid of the beauty or if you get rid of the classical elements of architecture, I'm not saying we need to go back and do the classical architecture, but if we, in theory, this was going to make the modern architecture was going to make us more, like you said, more complete, more productive, more democratic, and maybe more beautiful for everyone. But it didn't work like that. At the end of the day, we all live in cheap houses, smaller spaces, more boring variety of housing blocks, and the builders make more profit. The developers make more profit at the end of the day. So I think that I'm extremely happy that we can talk about how we might able to relate to the historic and to the incomplete things, and also maybe learn from it and make the new ones, bring a different perspective in the making of the new things. So inspired by your presentation the other day, I put a couple of things together. My Italian architecture knowledge is not great, but just as a tourist of Italian architecture, as a visitor from outside, this is one piece influences me a lot, extremely interesting to me. Maybe not the same reasons for you, but as I read about it more and more, I became more in love with it. So I think there's many understanding of this complex architecture that we can relate to today, and we are really interested in finding this kind of ways how we relate to complexity. Complex sites, different forms, similar genetics of the ideas, maybe computational look in the mathematical way of looking, geometrical way of looking at the sites and our environment. Because at the end of the day, we live in a geometric environment, and the only first notion of architect is to relate this kind of complex environment. And we have this case very often in Istanbul and also in the world. I mean, city is a complex thing by nature. And we try to behave like it is easy to, it is better to make it look like perfect and add some blocks and variety of things. So San Carlo is an extremely inspiring example. Borromini, very diverse architect, brings all different layers together, and they kind of have a knowledge about, from geometry to engineering. They have knowledge in a variety of things, and this kind of more connected way of looking things, I think is kind of missing in architecture recently because of the economical structures and disciplinary approach. The engineers, architects, and artists are different people now. So I think there's a lot to discover about it. I'm not giving answers, but these kind of initiated questions in me, and we try to kind of find these things in the city somehow. This is İstiklal Street, Yapı Kredi building is a museum. We were invited for making an installation on the facade. So we took we were very inspired by many things we were looking at the time. So we took the acoustic environment of the city and made a surface on top of the building, inspired this acoustic scanning of the city, data mapping of the city. We didn't, the building behind it is not a historic building, but we didn't want to just leave it out. We wanted to develop a special relationship. So on the surface, we generated this kind of lightweight structure, and we were able to come up with different techniques to make it fit exactly as we needed. So it kind of is a different piece on the surface, but completely fits as a geometry. So there's a very we try to achieve a very nice precision where we can fit to the existing building, but maybe with a completely different attitude. And we also wanted to come up with certain techniques so we don't distract the existing structure, so it still is useful. We touch it with a lightweight structure, and we also brought a visual level on top of this. There's a video, but maybe you see it online. So there's also digital layer on top of this building where we have projected images. So instead of bringing heavy fabrication or heavy physical reality onto the surface, we developed a digital surface which kind of made a window in the city to the digital dimension. So we thought this could be something we could experiment further, and this became one of the things we have been looking at in recent years. Another thing we try to do when we are moving inside existing structures is Fitaş Passage. Is a passage from 80s. The passage never worked as it is intended because of the touristification of the İstiklal Street. Things change dramatically. There has been events and a variety of things. So the building has been in transformation forever. But also the street became very different from the beginning. So maybe if you had a chance to visit the Grand Rupert, the Istiklal Street, you will see only ground floors are occupied, and top floors are not working as they used to be, because these buildings used to be on the ground floors, merchandise areas, and on top floors people would live there, or they would be offices and variety of things. But together with the touristification of the street, the only use is minimized into the ground floor. So we try to come up with a facade that kind of reminds the vertical functionality of the building, and we kind of made a street through the whole building, so this could function on the other floors. And on the facade, we try to come up with something that kind of relates to the neighbors, relates to the modern vision of the street, because there's a lot of building that was historic and been lost in the area. But how do you come up with a solution for a modern building, which is trying to evoke a modern vision, but still relate to the surrounding? So this was kind of a solution for us. And we always try to bring in people when we are doing these things, because if people are able to use these spaces, then they can become really part of the urban texture. So they will generate their uses also. So we come up with this kind of balcony, public balcony inside this private building, and we come up with a facade organization. Another project, we thought a lot about how we can relate to the existing fabric is Istanbul City Museum, where we were able to, where we were fortunate enough to work with Luca Molinari as the curator of the museum, and we had the chance to involve him from the very beginning. And our history of meeting with Luca Molinari goes back to Venice Biennale in 2014. So we were fortunate enough to represent Istanbul in this first attendance of ours into the Biennale, and we try to understand how actually city affects the built environment. Because when you look at Istanbul, it is a collection of complex things. Maybe it is very hard to define how things come together. But we thought if you look closely, the ownership mapping and topographical movements in the city, that might reflect some kind of the zoning and some kind of the main building relationships. And we try to reflect this into Istanbul City Museum project, because it is located on a very specific location. It is located at the edge of the historic city, where it starts to become a modern city, and it sits on a ridge where it connects to the Istanbul city walls. So we try to use the museum as a connector of the old town and the new city. And the story of the city museum was talking about the modern people, lives of modern people, and how they related to the city. And we thought connecting the modern people to the historic cultural center of the city might be the main idea. And this kind of reflected into curatorial level in each section. Of course, there's like you were mentioning, Alberto, there's an incompleteness of the existing land walls, and we always try to imagine how they were going to be as a perfect as they were in the history as a perfect whole. But I think the reality is they were always in transformation, always mixing different things. So we see a Byzantine palace stone that was used in the repair of the land walls in the Ottoman period. So things are inside each other, and together today we are experiencing different processes, different processes layered on top of each other. And like I said in the beginning, like you inspired in the presentation, I think as we architects need to develop a more articulate, more complex, layered understanding of this. And that's pretty much what is my take on from the regeneration concept. Thank you.
Alper, thank you very much for your presentation. And as an Istanbul citizen, I'm really appreciating about your works and your contributions about, especially with Luca Molinari and Italian-Turkish cooperation. And maybe Alberto can ask you some questions about your approach in the design field.
Yeah, I mean, thank you very much. I really like the reference to Borromini and how we can. Well, of course, we had architects that, I mean, they were belonging to, to a more classical culture that were maybe well beyond us in terms of how they were using geometry and mathematics and so on. So I think that it's very interesting what you showed about this work on the facade. I'd like to ask you. Sometimes regeneration is very much about, it's like putting new clothes on an existing skeleton, or putting new, let's say, new flesh on an existing skeleton. So we always have to understand what we have to keep, what we have to remove, how we have to kind of rebuild. And it makes me think, always going back to the idea of the body, I was thinking also about the idea of the cyborg. So at the same time, while the cyborg is a kind of a monster, it's a body which is half human, half technological, but I think that we're going towards that direction. So again, going back to the idea of the body, there is a kind of parallel in between how a regenerated architecture will be more and more like our bodies, more and more like something which there is something that belongs to history, something which is new technology, something that is so. And I think that we're becoming somehow, let's say, monsters, but in a way which is an interesting way. I was reading a book by a great Italian landscape designer, Annalisa Metta. She talks about monsters, saying that a monster is something which is in changing, something which is something that we still haven't recognized as something which belongs to our tradition, something which is in becoming. Don't you think that we're somehow producing, new animals, new species while working on regeneration, and that implanting something new over something which is there?
Very, very nice analogy. I never thought about this. But before answering your question, I mean, it really terrifies me that people try to come up with people-looking cyborgs. I mean, it's extremely grotesque. Like we try to imitate them. They have been, like all the technologists have been trying to imitate the human body so much. I think together with this energy, they would already come up with some very sympathetical, very interesting pieces of robots where we could already have them. So thinking about it in this design perspective of yours, I think, I mean, extending this idea to the cyborgs, to the monsters. Yes, we are coming up with monsters, but they could be nice looking. They could be articulate. It could make sense. I mean, there are connections we need to find. There are fundamental connections we need to find with the historic buildings. Like in the case of Borromini, I'm not maybe on a level to understand Borromini as a historic in my talking about my historical background, but I would try to, when we are approaching a building, we would try to understand the founding idea, not looking, not the end of the end of the beauty or end of the looks of the building, but what is the founding principles of this thing is, I think, very important to understand.
Yeah.
So in a way, we definitely are working on monsters. So some end up horrifying monsters. Some end up cute and empathical machines, maybe, let's say. Hopefully. That should be the aim.
I'm just saying that regeneration, it's something that really challenges the idea of beauty, because maybe what then comes up from a regeneration process is not what we were expecting, is not what we know, is something which we have to accept, also probably the sum of things that not necessarily integrate, Pinar, and also to answer to your question. Sometimes regeneration goes through a process of clashing tones and clashing elements, because it's impossible to create this kind of harmony that on the contrary is exactly from this kind of unexpected situation, that some kind of, let's say, sublime beauty, which is not necessarily something which is pacified and known, that we can have a new type of beauty. That's what I'm saying.
Can I ask you something, Alberto?
Yes, sure.
How is I'm always curious about being an architect in Italy. There's this amazing history of architecture and design also, and culture of protection also, in a way. And how does it affect? And I also see your work, extremely interesting work of yours online. How does it affect to be in such an inside such a history when you are when you are also trying to come up with new things? I'm hoping there's a connection, and I'm sure there are also difficult parts. So
yeah, well,
what's your situation?
Yes, this is something that I ask myself, and many, let's say, international friends always ask me. Think that I live very close to the Colosseum. Every time I get out of my home, I'm in front of the Palatine Hill, and this is one of my first memories, because it's also the place where I was born. And I always ask myself how this affects me. I have to say that, as I was mentioning you before, when I studied in university, that there was this great interest in trying to reproduce the values of historical architecture, let's say postmodernism. And as a student, I understood that was something that was not able to answer to what contemporaneity was, because Rome, the Rome that you know. The Rome that we all know and that we love is just something like this in a territory that is like this. So I'm much more interested in what is beyond, the historical remains, not because I don't like them, but because what they teach me is that we have to be very attentive of the context. So I think that probably what I learned from my city is to be really attentive to what is in the context, and the fact that when we design something, we have to really to be able to listen, to understand the context, and to make something that then becomes part and then integrates like in a new organism. I think that, to me, this is the let's say. And also, I've been living for 9 months in Doha, in Qatar. I was teaching there, and that was shocking to me, because it was completely the opposite of Rome. In Rome, wherever you dig, there is, an ancient villa which is buried under the ground. While, for example, that city has been built very recently, in 15 years, and that there have been changes that probably in any other town would require, I don't know, centuries. And I was kind of shocked that despite the fact that that town was so the opposite of my town, of my city, I also felt a so strong character there. I mean, what I'm saying is that also in the desert, in the middle of nothing, you have something there. You have a character, you have an identity, which is related to climate, to people, to what people eat, the way they speak. And I think that as architects, we have to be very, very, sensible to this. And we always have something to deal with. There is never a tabula rasa, something which is, I think, a bad legacy from modernity. Modern architects, they were, thinking about that, the place to dwell was a kind of a white piece of paper. And while I think that our ancient cities teach us that we always have to really read what's there, and probably the difference is that we have to we don't have to say this is good and this is bad. We have to put everything on the same level and try to understand, what can I do with this? What can I do of good with what is there? Because sustainability urges us to really try to keep as much as possible and to recycle everything and not to throw, and nothing should be wasted. That's the main question. I don't know if this answers your question.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's a diverse answer. I think there's no specific answer to answer. This might take the whole life to really get to the founding answers. But thank you for the perspective.
Yeah, I think I think that sometimes of course, we're very much interested about how technology, in the sense also of new technologies for the buildings, new technologies for the facade, for new materials. This is super important. And of course, I'm not, underrating this. But I think that it's more important the way our attitude towards this, the way we're able to kind of, to welcome everything that we find in our territories and try to understand how to improve them. And then, of course, technology can highly help us to improve these territories. But if we don't have the right approach, we cannot use it properly.
Yeah. Also, thinking about what you say, it is somehow close to each other. The best remains we have from the classical architecture are the most advanced technology that existed by the time, and because of our understanding with the time, maybe incorrect understanding of the time, we are having a hard time to connect these two things, at least in the historic environments. I'm not saying we need to come up with extremely technological approaches in the historical settings, but we could both sides, the historic architecture and preservation, and maybe the contemporary architecture could learn from each other more intricately, I hope. At least this what inspired me.
Yeah, sure. I mean,
in this idea.
Ancient architecture had a relation with the territory, with the local building techniques, with the local climate. Now we can build, glass skyscrapers in the middle of of the desert, and just because we have air conditioning. So surely historical architecture can teach us very much about a good relation with the context and with the environment. So that's why, for example, I think it's so interesting to look at what's going on, for example, in Africa, for example. Now think about Kere, that just got the Pritzker Prize, because they can build in conditions where they have the freedom, probably more than us, to find a connection with the territory, with the local techniques, with the way people you know, with the tradition of building, while we sometimes build with technologies that, you know, that are available everywhere in the world, so that they are completely I don't know, this is a difficult English word, deterritorializzate, so they're completely unrooted. So the question is how we can also use technology in a way that can find a link with a specific place, with a specific climate, with a specific culture. And this is the most interesting thing. That's why I was saying, you know, we need to go where distant past meet distant futures. And this is exactly what we have to do as designers and architects, I believe. Yeah. What do you think? And my question is about Istanbul. I wanted to ask you something about Istanbul because it's been a long time since I haven't been there. And it's one of the cities that has been changing more, I think, in the Mediterranean in the last, I don't know, in the last 20 years. You had very impetuous development of the city. How do you feel this relation between the modern and the ancient Istanbul that I feel so close to my hometown, to Rome? What is the relation between this new development and the ancient city?
Yeah, I mean, like in the Istanbul City Museum, there's a huge gap. There's the old and there's the new. Like the monsters you were talking about, we are on the monster stage of building cyborgs. It is the scales are not relating. The proportions are not related. There's no understanding. There's no either there's an approach. We almost rebuilt the existing thing. It almost looks like cartoon replica of the past historical things, or it is completely irrelevant. So I think we are doing an extremely bad job of relating these two things. Also, the free spaces are very overlooked. Like in the Istanbul City Museum case, there's a kilometer of thickness after the last historical piece because it's a protection zone, kind of, and there's the monsters everywhere. So there could have been a more articulate understanding of historical and the new. There could be more refined connections between the old and new. So I think this is what we kind of have been missed as a chance in the recent redevelopment of the whole city. So that's pretty sad. I also understand there's the fact of earthquakes and in the case of Istanbul. So engineers are maybe taking too much over. Engineers and developers profit and fear is taking too much place comparing to the historical values of the city, I think, unfortunately.
I would like to make some additions on the Alper's approach. And maybe we can also talk about one of our, maybe only the one cooperation with Alper in design fields. There was a design of Alper, we called it Ecoton. And I'm creating an allegory with Anatolia and this Ecoton concepts. Maybe I can define it, give an information a little bit about it. Ecoton is an area that, for example, a river is coming, meeting with sea on an area, of course, and biodiversity is reaching the highest level in that areas. I mean, this allegory is telling us about Anatolia is a part like that. And there are so many different cultures, of course, and so many different incomes from this different cultures and lives. So we were talking about living as an architect in Italy being as Italian citizen and Roma citizen, of course, and how we could compare it, not a comparison, of course, but how we can think about being an architect in Istanbul. And this biodiversity existence is also bringing some, let's say, circulations, some changes. So if you compare as an Italian mind to a Turkish one and an Anatolian one, in Turkey, yes, we have some earthquakes and some maybe other aspects of design, but also having this very circulative ideas and having this circulative culture is also giving another sense of design. So maybe we could have an idea about how it's going in monsters and ruin potential into the same field, can give an idea about this. So I would like to thank you all about your being participant of our Italian Design Day 2020. We really would like to have more cooperations in virtual reality or in Zoom, but for sure in face-to-face.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, now today we were with Alberto Iacovoni from Institute of European Design, Rome, and Alper Derinboğaz from Salon Architects from Gümüşsuyu, Istanbul. Thank you very much for your great effort and existence in our organization. And we hope to see you as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Pınar, thank you for very nice. Thank you for this very nice gathering. It was great to meet you, Alberto.
Thank you.
It was great for me too. Thank you very much. It was a very nice talk, and I really hope to see you in person soon.
Likewise.
Bye.
Presto.
Thank you, Pınar.
Ciao. Görüşmek
Bye.
üzere.
Ciao.
Ciao.